Hi everyone, how are you doing? It's Monday morning. I need to get to work soon, unfortunately. I'd much rather spend the day reading. I'm sad that the weekend is over. But I thought I'd make a quick video first, talking about a number of new books that I'm really excited about and that I'm hoping to read soon. But first, I want to talk about a very special book that was sent to me. So this is called Vermont Tradition by Dorothy Canfield Fisher. And I talked about this author in a video quite a while ago because I've never read her before, but she sounds like such a fascinating person. She was writing and working in the early 20th century in America. She was a feminist and a progressive educator, and she wrote a number of not best-selling novels and books of nonfiction. This is a nonfiction book about the history of Vermont and the idiosyncrasies of its people. And I lived in Vermont for a while, so I'd be really fascinated to read about this sort of characterization of the state and its people. But a viewer of mine named Lori got in touch with me through email a little while ago and said that her father sadly died recently. And in helping to clear his belongings, she said that they're not able to keep a lot of his stuff, and but that he was a big reader, and this was one of his favorite books that he read a number of times. And she saw me talking about this author, and so very kindly offered to send me her father's copy because she thought it would be lovely if it went to another reader rather than just getting rid of the book or giving it to charity, not knowing, thinking that it might just end up on some random shelf for ages and ages. And so I was really touched by that, and it's really kind of her to send this to me. And when I do read this, it's going to have a special meaning, knowing that it was read by somebody very special in the past. And so, and I wish kind of that I had more books that belong to my family members. Like my paternal grandmother was a big reader, and also one of my beloved aunts was a really big reader, who and both of them died when I was a teenager. And it's really sad that I didn't think at the time, as a teenager, I didn't think to want to keep any of their books. But if I had, reading those books, knowing that they were the copies that my grandmother and aunt read, that they would have a very special meaning to me. So yeah, it's really nice having this book, which was published in 1953. And yeah, and she just sounds like such a fascinating author. And actually, when I lived in Vermont, I went to Goddard College, and one of the dormitories on Goddard College, it's a very small campus, was called Fisher Dormitory, and named after this author. And I had no idea at the time when I was going to the college that it was named after her or who she was, or I didn't know anything about her. So yeah, that's just a sort of quirky little fact. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this at some point. Then I have a number of new books that publishers have kindly sent me, in which sound really good. So first, there are 3 books by authors that I've read before and that I'm always really excited to see new work by them. So I'm really interested in these. The first is The Harpy by Megan Hunter. I read her debut novel, The End We Start From, which is such an inventive, a dystopian novel, like a kind of dystopian novel like none I've read before. It's told in this very pared down style, and it was one of my favorite books that I read in the year that it came out. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. So her new novel, her second novel, is called The Harpy, and it's about a couple named Lucy and Jake, and they live a seemingly like happy married life. Lucy works from home, but one day a man stops by their house and has a conversation with Lucy, and to inform her that his wife is having an affair with Lucy's husband, Jake. and so she confronts him about this, and sort of the truth comes out, and they decide to stay together. But in order for her to sort of even the score, they decide that she's going to get her revenge on him by hurting him in 3 different ways, but those ways aren't specified, and he doesn't know when it's going to happen. So she's just going to sort of enact this revenge in 3 different ways, and so the story follows that, which sounds like a really fascinating, gripping, very suspenseful story to tell, and a really interesting way of looking at relationships. Then I have a new book of short stories called Intimacies by Lucy Caldwell, who's an Irish writer, and I've read her book of short stories Multitudes before, and I really loved that collection. She has this really fascinating style of writing, which is slightly like Raymond Carver-ish and really psychologically insightful. And this book is about a number of different young women, stories of different young women, and the steps and missteps they take in sort of navigating their lives, and deciding what they want in life, and has a really beautiful cover. Then I have a new novel by Rachel Joyce called Miss Benson's Beetle. This is a historical novel, and this is a proof copy, and this is what the real finished copy will look like. It's really beautiful, and so it's set in 1950 and involves 2 women who decide to sort of abandon their lives in England to travel to the other side of the world in search of a beetle, which may or may not exist. And so it's this sort of adventure quest to go in search of this beetle. But along the way, it's sort of about their friendship. And Rachel Joyce is a really excellent writer. I loved her book, The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, which was I think a big best-selling book, and there was a sequel to that novel called The Love Song of Miss Queenie Hennessy, which I absolutely loved. I thought it was such a brilliant, moving novel, and so I'm very eager to read more by her. Then I have Real Life by Brandon Taylor. This is a debut novel, I think, which was published in America a while ago, and I think it was supposed to be published in the UK this month, but it's now not actually going to be published in the UK until August now, because of the pandemic. A lot of publishing schedules have been pushed back and publication dates have been pushed back. But anyway, this is a proof copy. So this is what the finished copy of the novel will look like. It's quite a different cover from the US cover, but I think it's really good. And so it's about a college student named Wallace, who goes to a Midwestern university, and he's been studying biochemistry for a number of years. And he's sort of cut his life off from his early life growing up in Alabama, and but then he gets the news that his father died, but he doesn't go back for the funeral. He doesn't sort of emotionally process this information. So this novel sort of charts his journey of trying to reconcile with his early life that he's tried to forget and cut himself off from, and then how he progresses forward. And I've heard such great things about it. So I'm very eager to read this. Between Beirut and the Moon by A. Naji Bakhti. And this is a novel by a Lebanese author, and it's about a young boy in post-Civil War Beirut who dreams of being an astronaut and wants to go to the moon. And so it's sort of his quest to want to do that, and his battles with his father, but also sort of navigating the landscape of Beirut after the Civil War. It sounds absolutely fascinating. Then I have 2 books by Australian authors, and I always mean to read more Australian writing because I frequently watch Jacqueline's channel, her YouTube channel 6 Minutes for Me, and she's always so passionate about Australian writers, and making me want to read more. And so the first is a novel called The Animals in That Country by Laura Jean McKay, and again, this is a proof copy, so this is what the finished copy of the novel looks like. It's really creepy and and good. And so this is a novel about a much older woman who is hard drinking and foul mouthed and doesn't like people all that much. So she spends her time working with animals a lot more. And then a pandemic sweeps the country. And yes, this is topical, it's a strange virus that causes people to be able to hear what animals are saying, and then it slowly drives them insane, I think. And so yeah, it's about her experiences navigating this large scale disaster, and yeah, and obviously with her relationship with animals, I assume that comes into to play with it. But yeah, such an intriguing plot. Then there is the novel The Weekend by Charlotte Wood, and this is a novel about three older women again in their 70s who have been friends for decades, and one of their friends dies, and they spend the weekend clearing out her house and sort of going over the past and talking about the past. It's meant to be really brilliant. I'm so excited to read this. And finally, I have a novel called No Signal Area by Robert Perisic, who is a Croatian author, and this is the story of Oleg and Nikola, who are hustlers and entrepreneurs and ambassadors for capitalism, who try to reopen a factory, and the story of that. And Miriam Taves, the author, is a fan of this novel, and she says that in No Signal Area, Perisic brilliantly captures the absurdity and chaos of a society in transition. A poetic punk ethos saturates the book, defiant, anarchic, exuberant, and ironic, perfect for a story about hustlers and workers and dreamers and mercenaries in post-war, post-truth Croatia. And I think that sounds absolutely fascinating. So those are all the books that I want to talk about and get to. Let me know which of these you're interested in reading, or if you've read any of these, what your thoughts are about them, and we can have a chat in the comments below. But I hope you have a good week, and hope you get some good reading time in. Hope I get some good reading time in once I get through my work today. So I'll speak to you again soon, and yeah, bye.